There's a striking passage from the Chinese classic, Chaegeundam, that holds enduring wisdom for our times. It reads, Chaegeundam, the work of conquering selfishness and restraining. Desire, some say, it cannot begin without early recognition. Others say it fails without sustained effort. Recognition is like a magical pearl that reveals the demons within effort, is the sword that slays them. Both are essential. Let me repeat that for impact. Recognition is a magical pearl that reveals our inner demons. Effort is the sword that slays them. You need both. Now, what does this mean for us today? Especially in a world where desire is no longer hidden, it's broadcast, monetized, even rewarded. Let's dive into the psychology and the social structure behind this teaching. Part 1, why recognizing desire early matters. Some people believe that defeating selfish desires is just a matter of willpower. But modern psychology shows us it's more about when and how we recognize those desires. First, the power of habit formation. The human brain automates repeated behaviors. When satisfying our desires becomes habitual like impulse, buying, emotional eating, or online addiction, it soon bypasses conscious control. These automatic responses become part of our identity. If we don't recognize the patterns early, we lose the ability to interrupt them. Second, the window of developmental opportunity. Self-control doesn't suddenly emerge in adulthood. It develops through childhood and adolescence. Without guidance during those formative years, through family, school, or community, people grow up, lacking the ability to delay gratification. You don't learn to resist temptation as an adult if you were never taught how to as a child. Third, the danger of self-deception. We often rationalize our desires. We convince ourselves that we're in control, even when we're not. This leads to what psychologists call self-deception, not just lying to others, but lying to ourselves. Without early awareness, we don't learn to master desire, we learn to justify it. Part 2, the environmental factor why our society doesn't help. We live in a culture that doesn't just tolerate desire, it cultivates it. First, the temptation of consumer capitalism. Advertising, social media, influencer, culture, they equate personal worth with what we consume. Our identity becomes our desire. If we're not conscious of our inner structure, we become puppets of external manipulation. Second, the erosion of community guardrails. Traditionally, families, churches, and local communities helped regulate desire. They offered moral boundaries. Today, with individual freedom glorified and external accountability minimized, people grow up without clear lines between want and right. If we don't train ourselves early, society won't do it for us. Part 3, the tragedy of untamed desire in powerful people. Let's take this to a harder, more sobering level. Imagine a young man who committed crimes as a teenager, was in juvenile detention, but later studied law, became an attorney, and rose to social prominence. Yet he continues to engage in manipulation, abuse, or even criminal behavior. Why does this happen? First, antisocial personality disorder, ASPD. Some people, especially those who showed conduct disorders in adolescence, develop ASPD. These individuals lack guilt or empathy, disregard social norms, are impulsive and manipulative. Even if they're smart and educated, their intellect becomes a tool for deception, not transformation. Second, instrumental intelligence without moral development. These individuals may be legally brilliant but morally primitive. According to Piaget and Kohlberg, they remain stuck in early stages of moral reasoning driven by reward, not ethics. They know the law, but they use it for gain, not for justice. Third, narcissism and entitlement. Some grow up never facing consequences. Instead, they're rewarded, perhaps even admired for their dominance or cunning. This fuels a belief that they are above rules. The law doesn't apply to me. The higher they rise, the more dangerous they become because their pathology becomes institutionalized. Fourth, reinforced behavior. If their crimes were overlooked or rewarded with power, money, or influence, they don't just get away with it. Their behavior becomes reinforced. This is basic behavioral psychology. What began as deviance becomes a lifelong strategy. Part 4, the risk of isolation in youth. What if a child doesn't attend school and studies alone for years? On the surface, that may look like discipline. But psychologically, it's risky, especially for kids already struggling with empathy or impulse control. First, lack of peer interaction means lack of social feedback. Schools teach more than math. They teach waiting your turn, respecting boundaries, managing emotions, negotiating conflicts. Without that social training, children often grow up emotionally stunted. Second, empathy deficits. Empathy develops through shared experiences, seeing others cry, laugh, struggle. Without these cues, emotional intelligence doesn't grow. A person might become highly intelligent, but emotionally disconnected. Third, moral reasoning stagnates. Moral maturity requires disagreement, compromise, and humility experiences found in shared environments. Studying alone, isolated from challenge, often fosters egocentrism. You start believing my way is the only way. If you criticize me, you're wrong, not me. Part 5, when such a person gains power. Now imagine such a person not just succeeding, but becoming a leader. Not just any leader, but the head of state. This is rare. But when it happens, it's not just a personal triumph, it's a public trauma. First, moral disengagement spreads. Albert Bandura warned that if people see immoral individuals succeed, society starts justifying those behaviors. If he did it, why can't I? Crime pays if you're smart enough. This lowers the moral floor of society and dissolves collective guilt. Second, legal cynicism takes root. When someone with a criminal history rises to represent the law itself, people lose faith in the rule of law. They experience cognitive dissonance. If the lawbreaker becomes the lawgiver, what's the point of obeying? I've followed the rules all my life. Was I a fool? Law becomes a game for the powerful, not a standard for the just. Third, role model inversion. Young people look to leaders to define what's acceptable. If corruption, cruelty, and deception are rewarded, youth will follow. Suit not in righteousness, but in cunning. Society's educators, families, schools, religious institutions lose credibility. Fourth, collective helplessness sets in. People begin to feel, no matter how hard I try, nothing changes. This isn't just sadness. It's learned helplessness, a form of societal depression. Trust erodes. Division grows. Civic engagement collapses. Extremism thrives. Final reflection. Let us remember the wisdom of Chaegeundam. Recognition is the pearl that reveals. Effort is the sword that slays. Both are essential. Knowledge alone is not enough. Law degrees don't guarantee morality. Titles don't ensure character. We must teach not only facts but virtue. We must recognize selfish desire early and work to master it before it masters us. Only then can we lead lives and nations grounded in integrity. Closing slide soft music, white text on black. Without inner transformation, knowledge can become a tool of deception. Inspired by Eastern wisdom and modern psychology, visit the channel. We go deeper into both the science and the wisdom.